G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. If you're looking for that perfect dessert that's easy to make, that's paleo, gluten-free and keto, then I guarantee you have to try this recipe. Even if you don't want it for those particular reasons, I guarantee you'll love it. So join me today as I make my version of a chia seed pudding. So I'm going to start this off with one of my favorite ingredients, and that's chia seeds. Now as you can see, I like to buy these in bulk because I really do go through a lot. It's one of those semi-superfoods, super seeds, that really are fantastic in so many recipes. Okay, so into a cup or a dessert dish of your choice, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of chia seeds. So next I'm going to add some almond milk. Now I'm going for the unsweetened version because I don't want any added sugar. Now you can also use soy milk, rice milk, it's completely up to you. You can even use normal milk, but I'm trying to keep it with that whole paleo, vegan type friendly recipe, but also healthy at the same time. So to my chia seeds, I'm just going to add 1 cup of our almond milk. Now I'd like to add a little bit of vanilla taste to it, so I'm just going to add just a little bit of vanilla extract. You only need a small amount. And lastly, I'm going to add a pinch of stevia. Now you can use powdered stevia or liquid stevia. You only really need a very small amount because it's pretty strong, but it's just one of those all natural sweeteners that are just fantastic. It's better than the artificial ones. So just a little pinch. It's like you're pinching a bit of salt on, but it's a lovely sweet stevia. And simply give it a good stir. Just make sure all those chia seeds are within the milk, our almond milk. So this is one of these recipes where you want to prepare the night before or in the morning for the afternoon. It's up to you. Depends on when you're going to have it. I'm going to have this in the morning for breakfast, or as part of breakfast I should say. So it takes about 4 hours, and what that's going to do is those chia seeds are just going to absorb all that almond milk. It's just going to thicken up until it comes up to a nice thick pudding type consistency. So we're just going to keep this in the fridge for a minimum of 4 hours, or preferably overnight. So I've taken our chia seed pudding out of the fridge and it's been there overnight, and you can see how nice and thick it has turned out. Those chia seeds have really soaked up all that lovely almond milk, so it's given us a lovely thick custard textured pudding. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. This bar recipe is incredibly simple to make, literally 3 ingredients, takes just a few minutes to prepare, and it's also very healthy for you too. It's paleo, vegan, gluten-free and keto friendly. And the best thing is it tastes fantastic, so join me today as I make my version of 3 ingredient coconut bars. Okay, so this is how simple and easy it is. 3 simple ingredients. So into a mixing bowl I'm going to place in 3 cups worth of shredded coconut. Next I'm going to use some coconut oil. Now depending on the current room temperature, it could be hard, could be soft, but we want to use soft to melted. So I'm just going to pour that straight in. And that already smells delicious. I love that coconut oil smell. And for our final ingredient, I'm going to add some maple syrup. Now you can use regular if you like, but I'll try and keep this sugar free. And this is the alternative I'm using to keep this healthy and sugar free. But you can use any type of sweetener that you like. So you can use a sugar version if you like, or you can use a non-sugar version. So we're just going to pour in a 1/4 cup of our sugar-free maple syrup. And no special equipment needed, just get in there with a spoon, give it a good mix until it's completely combined. Okay, so once mixed, we're going to place it into just any type of tray really. Now this one I've greased, coincidentally, with some cookie spray oil that is coconut based. Or you can use some parchment paper, whatever you prefer. And just compact it down until it's nice and firm. Now there's no size on this, so no size limit, so you can have it twice as thick if you like, a little bit thicker, so you can use twice the amount of ingredients. It's completely up to you because it's not being baked, it just needs to set in the fridge. Okay, so we're just going to seal it up, place it in the fridge for a good hour or so to completely set, and then it's ready. And there we have our 3 ingredient no bake coconut bars. Now they're very simple to slice up, and I do highly recommend that you keep them in the fridge, especially on a warm day. If it's a cold day, they'll be fine at room temperature, because it mostly does come down to the coconut oil. because on a cold day, it'll easily stay firm, but on a warm day, it's just going to melt. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. Brownies are one of those all-time recipes that everyone loves, but the problem is they're not very healthy for you too. Actually, they're incredibly unhealthy. But this is an incredibly different version, still tastes absolutely delicious, but also very healthy too. It's super easy and it's keto friendly. But of course, don't forget, everything in moderation. So you can still have a few slices guilt-free. So join me today as I make my version of keto brownies. Okay, so to start this off, we're going to melt some butter and chocolate. So first of all, into a microwave safe dish or bowl, I'm going to place in half a cup of butter. And because this is a keto version, we will really want to use a dark chocolate. The lighter chocolates, like milk chocolate for example, they really are jam-packed full of sugar. But the darker the chocolate, the better. Now you've got two options. You can go like say 70 plus, give or take. I just happen to have these ones here. Like I bought this 99% one because I was curious what it was like. Trust me, it's not good by itself, but it's great in desserts. But for keto desserts, 90% is my go-to chocolate. So I'm going to use 60 grams or about 2 ounces of my 90% dark chocolate. But again, you don't have to go 90%, you can choose say 70% and up, and that'll help you stay in the keto type version of this recipe. So I'm just going to break up our chocolate into smaller pieces. And we're just going to place this into the microwave, and we're going to microwave it on high for 30 seconds at a time. Give it a good stir with a teaspoon every 30 seconds until it's completely melted and well combined. Okay, so next I've got a bowl. Now, you can use a hand mixer or a stand mixer for this, so honestly it's completely up to you. Whichever you have, you can even use a hand whisk. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour in our melted butter and chocolate. And once it's melted, make sure it's not hot, because we're about to add some eggs to this and we don't want the eggs to scramble. And then to that, I'm going to add about 1.5 tablespoons of natural stevia. So stevia is pretty strong, so you don't want to use too much, otherwise it sort of leaves a bit of an aftertaste if you use too much. So about 1.5 tablespoons is more than enough for this recipe. I wouldn't do any more than that. So next I'm going to use some vanilla bean paste. Now you can use the extract if you like, it's completely up to you. But I find with the paste, you use a lot less, which means there's a lot less carbs and sugar. It's already very low in sugar anyway, but you only need a very small amount, so it's not going to affect the keto part of this recipe. So just add just a dab of it. That's more than enough. So about half a teaspoon worth. I wouldn't go any more than that. Next I'm going to add 2 eggs. Now these eggs have been sitting at room temperature for about an hour or so. And then we're going to add half a teaspoon of baking powder. And we're simply going to give it a good whisk for about 30 seconds, just until everything is combined and that stevia and baking powder is dissolved. Okay, and everything is completely combined. Now again, you can use a hand whisk, meaning you can do it by hand, or you can use one of those electric hand whisks. Okay, so if it wasn't chocolatey enough, for our final 2 ingredients, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder, unsweetened of course. And if you're wondering how we're going to keep it completely keto friendly with flour, well, I'm going to use almond flour. Works just like normal flour with all the extra ingredients, except there's no carbs. And when I say no carbs, I mean it's the lowest possible carb flour that you can get. It's only 5.9 grams per serve, and this is a very big bag, so you're going to get quite a bit out of that for such a low carb rating, as opposed to flour, which is like 60-70% carbs depending on the flour that you get. And the best bit is I'm only using half a cup's worth. That's honestly all you need. So it's probably about 6 or 7 grams of carbs in this entire recipe. So you could eat the whole thing yourself and not have to worry about the carbs anyway. Of course, I still wouldn't recommend it because calories do add up, of course. So not just with a keto diet, as in you still want to watch your calories, but there is still too much of a good thing. Okay, so the best way to do this is we don't want to over mix it, because if we over mix this, we're going to get like a cakey consistency once it's cooked. When we want it, we don't want it dry, but we don't want it too wet as well. So the best part about this is you mix it for just a few seconds, just so everything is just combined. And as soon as it's just combined, stop it straight away and it's done. And that's it. It is that simple. Okay, so lastly, I've just got a baking pan here and I've lined it with some non-stick parchment paper, and I've also given that a quick grease as well, just to be on the safe side. So just going to place our mix into our pan and just even it out. Okay, so we're going to place this into a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes. And if you're not sure if it's ready, just put a skewer in the middle. If it comes out slightly moist, but more on the dry side, then it's ready. But it comes out very wet, well, give it another couple of minutes. Especially if you don't have a fan forced oven, I'd give it an extra 2 minutes just to be on the safe side. Okay, so it's been cooking away for 20 minutes. So I've just got a wooden skewer here. I'm just going to stick it in the center and see how it comes out nice and clean. It's ready. Now don't worry about all this oily residue. That's actually just from the oil that I've sprayed on the outside, which prevents it from sticking, so don't worry if you see that. But as long as you put the skewer in, comes out clean, it's ready. Okay, so we're going to take this out of the oven and we're going to let it cool down at room temperature for about half an hour. After half an hour, place it in the fridge for a further 2 hours to give it a chance to completely set. Okay, so they're out of the fridge. I've sliced them up and don't they look absolutely delicious? Now they are easily one of the healthiest brownie recipes you're ever going to try. They're perfect if you're on a keto diet or just as a healthy version of a lovely brownie. So while they're pretty much guilt-free brownies where they're keto friendly, diet friendly, just keep in mind you can have too much of a good thing. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. If you're on a keto diet, you're going to love this ice cream because it's one of those desserts that you just can't have. But this one's incredibly simple to make and delicious. So join me today as I make my version of a keto chocolate ice cream. Okay, so this ice cream recipe is not only incredibly healthy, it's also incredibly simple to make as well. So to start off with, into a mixing bowl, I'm going to place in about 2/3 a cup of Greek yogurt. Now this is my homemade Greek yogurt, or my homemade yogurt I should say. And I'll leave a link at the end of the video on how you can make it yourself because it's so cheap, so easy, and so healthy. But you can also use just normal Greek yogurt because it doesn't have all that extra sugar and carbs in it. So it's the healthiest version of yogurt you can get, just like my homemade version. Then to that I'm going to add 1 cup of non-fat milk. You can also use almond milk or soy milk or anything like that. It's really up to you. Make sure it's the unsweetened type of course, so it doesn't have any sugar in it. Then to that I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder, followed by a dash of vanilla paste. Now, I love this stuff because it's very concentrated, so you only need the smallest amount. So only half a teaspoon to a teaspoon worth. You won't need much at all. And for a little extra added sweetness, I'm going to use some stevia. Just be careful not to use too much. So I'm going to use about a teaspoon worth. Because if you use too much, it leaves like a bit of an aftertaste and you don't want that because it's very strong. But if you use it in small amounts, it's fantastic as a natural sweetener. And lastly, I'm going to use some protein powder. So it's not only a low carb keto ice cream, it's also a protein ice cream. So there certainly isn't a product endorsement. This just happens to be the protein powder that I'm currently using. And as you can see, it is incredibly low in carbs. And that's also per serve, which is next to nothing anyway. But when you mix it in with the whole recipe, you're definitely not going to eat all the ice cream at once. So your carb intake is next to nothing. But the best thing is, it's very high in protein. So to that, I'm going to add 30 grams of our protein powder, which is also a chocolate protein powder. Of course, you can use vanilla because you've already got the cocoa powder, but who doesn't love chocolate on chocolate, especially when it's guilt-free? So now, using a hand or stand mixer, we're going to whip this up until everything is well combined and all the powders have completely dissolved within our milk and yogurts. Okay, so as you can see, it is whipped up nicely. It's incorporated a lot of air into that mixture, which is exactly how you want it. Okay, so now if you have an ice cream maker, feel free to use that. I choose not to, simply because for the video, most people don't have one. So I like to just place it straight in to a sealable container. You can see all those air bubbles that are in there. That means it's whipped up perfectly. But if you have an ice cream machine, feel free to use that. So once it's in this sealable container, what we're going to do is after the first hour, take it out, give it another whip. That'll just help keep that air incorporated. Okay, so at this point, obviously if you have an ice cream maker, use that. But if you don't, we're just going to place it straight into the freezer as is. And in 1 hour, we're going to take it out, give it another quick whip, then place it back into the container and leave it in the freezer for a good, say, 3 to 4 hours to completely set. And as a hint, when you're about to serve it, just to take it out, leave it at room temperature for about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. That'll just help it soften up and it makes it a lot easier to scoop out and place into your bowl. Okay, so I've just served up some of our delicious keto chocolate ice cream and just look at that. Now, as with all homemade ice cream, it will be harder. It's not as fluffy as a traditional store-bought ice cream. But by following the tips that I mentioned earlier about whipping it after the first hour, and maybe even the second hour as well, it'll just help keep that nice and aerated, so it won't be as thick. But it's still delicious, and it's one of those guilt-free ice creams that I know that you'll love. So it's keto friendly, it's definitely diet friendly, but just make sure, obviously, with everything, you can have too much of a good thing, so in moderation. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. Who says fudge is unhealthy? Well, me. It's actually pretty unhealthy, but this one's a lot better. It's keto, it's vegan, it's pretty healthy in moderation. So join me today as I make my version of a keto chocolate fudge. Okay, so this is how incredibly simple this recipe is. Simply 3 ingredients. So the first thing I'm going to use is some coconut oil. So I have a pot on the stove on a medium heat, so I'm going to pour in 1.5 cups of our coconut oil. Now you can substitute this for coconut butter, but personally I prefer the oil itself. Next I'm going to use 1 can, which is 400 ml of full cream coconut milk. Now for this particular recipe, you really don't want to substitute it for the light coconut milk. You want to use the full cream one. And for our final ingredient, I'm going to add 280 grams or about 10 ounces of bittersweet chocolates. So now all we have to do is just give it a good mix and just keep on stirring it over this medium heat until the chocolate is completely dissolved and everything is well combined. Just make sure it's a medium heat. If you have it too hot, you can burn the chocolate on the base. Okay, so when you get to the point where it's just starting to bubble, so it's about to simmer, that means it's completely melted and cooked through. So at this point, you don't want to mix it anymore. It's completely combined, so just take it straight off the heat. Okay, so I've just got a dish here that I've lined with some non-stick parchment paper. So just simply pour our mixture straight in. I'll tell you what, this already smells delicious too. Now this is completely optional. Now you can use flakes or coarse or just regular table salt, but just sprinkle just a little bit on top. Not too much, and that'll really up the flavor. So now all we have to do is simply place this into the fridge for about 3 to 4 hours to completely set. Okay, so I've taken it out of the fridge and as you can see, it is completely set. Now for complete transparency, I actually made a slight mistake with this. When I mixed the ingredients into here, I didn't give it a chance to cool down properly. So it was a bit warm when I put it in the fridge. And I noticed that the coconut oil started to separate and actually settle on top. So once it cooled down a bit, I just gave a quick whisk in the pan just to mix all the ingredients in again, which actually worked out very well because it's given like this ripple effect on top. So I've actually turned a mistake into something that actually looks far better. So it's up to you if you want to do it this way as well. You can put it in hot, then come back say an hour later and give it you can use like a whisk, which is what I did, or a spoon, just mix it in together again when it's a lot cooler but not set. Or just wait for all the ingredients to cool down to, say room temperature, give them another mix, then pour it in. And then you'd have the uniform color. Honestly, I think it looks better like this. And what do you think? Let me know in the comments if you prefer it like this or just a plain chocolate look. So this just simply pops out of our tray and all we have to do is slice it up. And there we have our delicious 3-ingredient keto, paleo and vegan friendly fudge. So there really are no words to describe just how simple this was to make. The video honestly just speaks for itself. So while this is a very healthy recipe, just remember everything in moderation. It's great as a snack, especially if you're on a keto diet, but regardless of that, it's fantastic as a treat by itself. So just make sure you keep it in the fridge because coconut oil does have a very low melting temperature. So if you keep it in the fridge and just take it out when you need it, it'll be perfect and nice and firm. And honestly, oh man, that's just delicious. It really is. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. Who doesn't love chocolate cake? It's absolutely delicious. I've made many chocolate cake in a mug recipes before, but this one's definitely going to be different because it's also a lot healthier too. And it's perfect if you're on a keto diet or just trying to cut out carbs and sugar. So join me today as I make my version of a keto chocolate cake in a mug. Okay, so to start this off, we're going to start off with a mug. Oh, that's a pretty sexy mug too. Now for complete transparency, this mug that I'm using is actually bigger than normal mugs. So I am personally upping the ingredients a little bit, but the ingredients that I'll be saying and listing in the description below are just for those normal size mugs. So we're going to start off by placing 2 tablespoons of butter into our mug. And we're just going to place this into the microwave for say 30 seconds at a time, just until it's completely melted. And once our butter's completely melted, I'm going to use some almond flour. Because when it comes to carbs and sugar, it is basically nothing compared to regular flour. And that's one of the best ways to get the no carb part of this recipe. Okay, so our butter is out of the microwave. As you can see, it is nicely melted. So to that, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of our almond flour, then 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, which has no sugar in it whatsoever. Of course, make sure you check the back of the ingredients. It should be 100% or 99% cocoa. Then to that, 1 large beaten egg. Next, I'm going to use some cocoa nibs or chocolate chips, depends whichever way you want to call it. So as you can see, basically no carbs and sugar whatsoever. Now if you can't find this, just find the darkest chocolate that you can and just chop it up into rough pieces. So I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons worth of our chocolate chips. And I've got some stevia here. Now when it comes to stevia, it's very strong, so you just really need a pinch worth. It's like adding a pinch of salt. Just gives that a little bit of sweetness. You don't want too much. And speaking of salt, we're just going to add a little bit of salt as well, just to enhance all the flavors. And to help everything rise, we're going to add some baking powder. So I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon. And now it's just a simple matter of mixing everything through until it's all well combined. Just make sure you get right down to the bottom so you get everything in. Okay, so just before we put it into the microwave, I'm just going to sprinkle some more of our chocolate chips on top. Okay, so we're going to place this into the microwave for 1 minute. Take it out, just push it down on top. If it sponges back, it's ready. If not, just put it in for another 10 seconds at a time, just until you get to that nice cake consistency. And there we have our delicious keto chocolate cake in a mug. And it is cooked perfectly. See how it's risen? That's from the baking powder. So you get that lovely spongy cake look. So it's perfect as a single serve. I mean, who's going to want to share this? But as you can see, by pushing it on top, it springs back. That means it's lovely and done. And as you can see, some of the chocolate has melted on top, so you have a lovely chocolate ganache all ready to go, so there's no extra preparation. And there will also be a little bit of chocolate ganache inside the cake as well. But if you don't want that, simply don't add the chocolate chips. You can just use the cocoa powder, or cocoa powder, but look how spongy that is. And you can see there's little bits in there of the melted chocolate. It is perfect. Oh, that is really good. This is not only one of the most healthiest chocolate cakes you're going to have, it's going to taste simply delish. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. I've made a number of chia seed puddings in the past because they're so delicious and most importantly, so easy and healthy. And this one is especially good for first thing in the morning. So join me today as I make my version of a coffee chia seed pudding. Now, of course, you don't have to use fresh beans. You can use the standard instant coffee if you like. It's completely up to you. It's just whatever you have at home. So you don't have to use fresh coffee beans. It honestly just comes down to personal preference or whatever you have at home. And yeah, I'm a bit of a coffee snob, but that's why I like to use fresh coffee beans. I mean, just look at that crema. It is absolutely delicious. Okay, so you can use any type of vessel that you like. I'm just going to use my standard dessert type one. But you can also use, say, just a normal coffee cup if you like. It just comes down to whether you want the extra presentation, which I'm doing for this video, or just something quick and easy like a coffee cup. So I've got a shot of coffee. Now I'll let it cool down to room temperature and I'm just going to pour that in first. And for a bit of extra sweetness, I've got some vanilla bean paste. Now you can use normal vanilla extract, that's up to you. But you only need a small amount, so if you're trying to keep this keto, well, it's not going to affect it at all. And we're going to play this by ear, so I'm just going to add some milk, say about 3/4 of the way. You don't add too much just yet, just in case. Because next we're going to add some chia seeds. Now, I could give an exact amount, but everyone's cup is different, everyone's vessel is different. So I'm going to add as much as I can at the moment. So I want to make this more of a mocha type flavor, so I'm going to add some cocoa powder. So at this point we're just going to mix it in nice and slowly, just until everything is combined. So you can tell by the thickness or how much chia seeds you have in there. So it's still, the chia seeds will soak up and expand. They'll pretty much double in size. But at the moment I could already tell that there's probably not enough, so I'm just going to add some more. But if you worked with chia seeds before, you'll know what I mean. They will double in size, but they won't actually double in size as in they will expand over the cup like you're baking on bread or something. You just want it nice and thick. So they're going to take up most of the room of where the liquid is because they're going to soak all that liquid up. So I think I'll just add the rest there. There's about 3 or 4 tablespoons worth here. And I'm just going to top it off with just a little bit more milk. You can use full cream or skim, that really honestly makes no difference. And if you want to make it vegan, well, you can use almond milk, rice milk, whatever type you like. And that's it. It is so simple. So you want to make this the night before, because it needs to set for a minimum of 4 hours. So that's why I like to make this the night before as a little treat, sort of like a mini dessert on the side. So just place it into the fridge for a minimum of 4 hours, but as I said, preferably overnight, and it'll be ready in the morning. Now I've taken it out of the fridge and it is completely set. Now just throw in some coffee beans on top. That's purely for looks. It's up to you if you have them or not. You can actually eat them, there's nothing wrong with that. But the pudding itself is delicious. And you don't have to stick at one coffee shot. You can have 2, or you can even have 3. Of course, I wouldn't recommend too many shots of coffee. You don't want to be stuttering or shaking too much. And this is very versatile. I didn't mean this to turn into a keto recipe. I just happen to have it with a bit of vanilla extract for the sweetness. But you can have normal sugar. It's really up to you. But honestly, and well, look at that. That looks so good, doesn't it? It's set perfectly. Oh, and it tastes fantastic. So it really is an incredibly simple, easy, fast little thing to make up before you go to bed, and it's ready for you first thing in the morning. And just look at the texture. It is creamy and delicious and thick, and you still have that bite of coffee, that lovely, lovely taste. G'day, welcome to Todd's Kitchen. One of the things I have in my diet are chia seeds. They're so versatile, so delicious, and they're also great to make up a dessert too. So join me today as I make my version of a blueberry chia seed pudding. Okay, so this is literally going to take me just a minute or two to put together. So I'm going to start off with some blueberries. Now you can use fresh or frozen, being defrosted of course. Personally, I just go whatever's cheaper because it all comes down to what's in season. And basically, you just want to mash them down as much as you can. You can do this in a little mini blender if you like, but I just like to get in there with a teaspoon and just roughly mash them up like so. Okay, so I've got them roughly mashed up. Now you can do it as a puree, it's up to you. I like to have the extra texture. Okay, so next, I'm going to add in probably one of my most favorite ingredients, and that's chia seeds. They are so healthy, so wonderful, and they really are a perfect thickening agent that's completely natural and healthy. So to our mashed up blueberries, I'm going to add in 6 tablespoons worth of our chia seeds. Now you can use any type of milk that you like, for example almond milk, but I'm going to use coconut milk simply because of the taste. But you can also use normal milk as well. And to keep it healthier, make sure it's the unsweetened version. Because with the blueberries and the added extras I'm going to be adding in a minute, it's already going to be sweet enough anyway, so you don't need all those artificial sugars. So I'm going to pour in 2 cups of our coconut milk. And then finally, I'm going to add some vanilla extract. So with the sweetness of the blueberries and some vanilla extract, that's going to add a nice touch of sweetness without all the extra calories. And simply give it a very good mix through until everything is combined. And all the chia seeds are completely immersed in our milk. Now you can use any type of dish that you like. Dessert dish, a mug, completely up to you. Just simply pour in the desired amount. And it's that simple. Now we're just going to place these into the fridge for a minimum of 4 hours, preferably overnight, just to give a chance for all those chia seeds to thicken up that lovely milk. Now what I do recommend is give it a quick stir after the first hour or so, just to prevent everything from settling down as it's thickening, because it will start to thicken up pretty fast. So the main goal is to make sure everything is nice and uniform in texture. So give it a good stir after the first hour, and then you'll be perfectly set, and in about 4 hours or overnight, it's ready to serve. Okay, so I've just taken it out of the fridge after 4 hours, and as you can see, it is completely set. Now you can have it as is and it'll be perfectly fine. In fact, it'll be delicious. Or you can add a topping to it. Now you can add some more blueberries. But personally, I just like to add just a few little pistachios. because it just adds that nice little extra soft crunch. So it's not only a texture thing, it's a taste thing. And these nuts really are the good fat that you want in this healthy dessert. And honestly, doesn't that look just delicious? It's not only incredibly healthy, it's incredibly delicious too. Especially when it's topped off with those delicious pistachios. So it literally took me just a few minutes to put together. It's not only incredibly healthy, it's incredibly simple to make, and it doesn't get any better than this. Again, you can use any topping that you like, if you choose. Personally, I love pistachios, but no matter what you choose, either way, it's going to taste simply delish.